Progress Parade brings you a collection of true stories of America at work.
This is the story of a romantic young man born too soon. Bill Thompson has just married Carol Cook, the prettiest girl in town. And he's pretty proud of his roadster, which will carry them off on a glorious honeymoon. And if a few tin cans and shoes drag along with an embarrassing sign, well, Bill's too happy to care. Let the fellows have their fun. He's on his way to a happy honeymoon. It's a thrilling sensation to be hurtling along the road at 25 miles an hour with your own fair lady sparkling in the sun. But in these days, a country road is like a trackless waste with no friendly service stations at convenient locations to help you in time of need. And when your engine starts to splutter and your wife starts to mutter, well, Billy boy, you're in trouble. But Bill is the confident type. He's got everything under control. There's a reserve can of gasoline strapped to the running board. So don't worry about a thing, he tells his wife as he lifts the front seat to get at the fuel tank. Picks up the reserve can of gasoline. And nothing. He'd forgotten to fill it the last time this happened. A half an hour later, Bill's happy honeymoon is beginning like this. And if this is romance, Bill thinks it's for the birds. Buttery, which began with the development of the internal combustion engine in 1879 by George Selden, now builds millions of cars each year for America's mobile population. And the oil and automobile industries have cooperated over the years in developing more efficient engines and fuels for the American motorist. Millions of dollars in research have been spent to develop today's high-octane gasoline. For example, it has been estimated that it costs the oil industry almost $200 million each time the octane rating of gasoline is raised just 1 point. But high-octane gasoline and the thousands of service stations throughout the country have given the American family a new freedom, the freedom to go wherever they desire, swiftly and comfortably, and without the worry that plagued motorists 40 years ago.
Yes, sir.
Fill her up.
That's right, Dad. We don't want to run out of gas like a certain fellow I know.
I wish I'd never told him that story. He'll never forget it.
I won't either.
The Seneca Indians, who made their home in Pennsylvania in the early 1800s, used to splash through a mysterious oily substance that bubbled from underground. The Indians thought this was heap good medicine. And many a squaw used it to ease the pain when her warrior hurt him bad. News of this strange medicine quickly spread. A businessman named Samuel Keir heard about it and started bottling it as a medication for sale around the country. Keir called it rock oil and advertised it as a cure for almost every and any ailment. Then the man who was to revolutionize a century heard of the new substance. Edwin L. Drake, a retired railroad conductor, was assigned in 1858 as general agent of the Seneca Oil Company and told to investigate the land holdings of the company near Titusville, Pennsylvania, to see if he could obtain oil in large quantities to be sold as an illuminant for lamps. Through ridicule and lack of capital, Drake persevered. But he soon realized that oil could not be found by digging, and there was no market for mud. So he tried drilling. His driller was a blacksmith called Uncle Billy Smith. But for a long time, all the drill bit found was more mud. Old-fashioned methods of drilling wouldn't work until Drake thought of drilling through pipe, a method which is still used today. Drilling 3 feet a day, they reached 69 feet on August 27th, and then quit for the weekend, still without oil.
Hold on a second, son. Take a look down there, son. You see anything?
No. Gosh, time we get to the fish will all...
Now, wait. Run quick to town. Find Colonel Drake and tell him we struck oil. Go on, run!
Look, here he is!
We done it, Colonel. We struck it. Let them laugh at you now.
This year, the oil companies celebrate the 100th anniversary of that great moment in man's history, the drilling of the first well for oil, which ushered in a new era of abundant, low-cost energy that changed our way of life, improved our standard of living, and set the stage for the greatest period of industrial and economic growth in the history of mankind. The story of Drake and his backers is a story of free enterprise in the American way. Braving hardships and the risk of financial disaster, the oil pioneers gambled and won. Today, that spirit of enterprise is still America's greatest asset. But nowadays, finding oil is a far more costly business than in Colonel Drake's day. Colonel Drake had to pay Uncle Billy approximately $1 a foot for a well less than 70 feet deep. Today, most of the oil near the surface has been discovered, and oil men must sometimes drill as deep as 25,000 feet at costs as high as $110 per foot. And drilling in the ocean offshore adds fantastic amounts to the investment. But men with the spirit of Edwin L. Drake are still drilling, risking their personal resources to find and bring the precious oil to the surface, to continue to build America's economy. The Lindy Hop, the Charleston, and the Black Bottom were some of the most popular dances ever known. In the Roaring 20s, they were all the rage. And so was a man called Lindy, who made a historic hop of his own. Before Charles Lindbergh, brave men had been experimenting with flight a long time. Most of them didn't even get off the ground. And the ones who did often regretted it. The flight of the Wright brothers culminated man's search for a flying machine that worked. But the man who was to dramatize the potentials of flight did not move into the spotlight until 1927. In that year, Lindbergh climbed into a frail little plane and took off from Roosevelt Field, Long Island, New York. When he landed in Paris, Lindy was exhausted and world famous. The first man to fly across the Atlantic alone. Today, we've come a long way from the days of Lindy's solo flight. His plane, the Spirit of St. Louis, looks tiny and primitive compared to the huge modern jets which crisscross the Atlantic daily. And the gasoline which carried Lindbergh across the ocean would not run your own automobile satisfactorily. In fact, today's gasoline is the same quality of fuel which powered airplanes in World War II. Yet, since the middle 20s, the cost of living has risen almost 65%, while the cost of a gallon of gasoline has risen only about 7%, not including taxes. Based on the national average, not including taxes, you'd only be paying approximately 21.5 cents a gallon today. So remember, the next time you take your car out for a little trip to the neighborhood grocery, you've got more power in your gas tank than Lindbergh had to carry him across the Atlantic. Yet gasoline prices have changed very little since the days of the Lindy Hop.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
In the smoke which hung over Pearl Harbor during the Japanese attack, one important fact was obscured. The Japanese caused heavy damage, but they missed the most important target of all, the oil supplies. The loss of this oil would have prevented our forces from counterattacking, and victory would have been delayed for many months. But the oil supplies were saved, and we were able to mount the counterattack, which eventually led to victory in the Pacific. Military men know how important oil is in warfare. A look at the Normandy invasion will show how oil played a vital role, aiding our fighting men in every phase of the attack. The bombers could not have flown without high-octane gasoline. Without oil, the huge ships could not have moved across the channel to disembark the troops. Ashore, the armored divisions each used 60,000 gallons of gasoline a day. Oil was everywhere, fueling ships at sea, providing vehicles with the gas they needed to keep going in battle, and even, in the form of medicines, helping the wounded. At the beginning of the war, Admiral Chester Nimitz said that winning was a matter of beans, bullets, and oil. By the war's end, he had changed that statement. Now, he said, it's oil, bullets, and beans. And General George Marshall added his tribute. No plane has failed to fly. No ship has failed to sail for lack of oil. Faced with the tremendous needs for fuel, the oil companies responded and made certain that oil was on the spot wherever needed. Today, the military story shows an even more urgent need for oil. Modern jet bombers consume much more fuel than the old-fashioned propeller planes. And oil-derived products power the missiles, which are becoming our first line of defense. The defense of this nation depends to a great degree upon the oil that can be found to fuel its machines and weapons. New fields must constantly be found and developed so that in the event of a national emergency, America would know, not just hope, that she had enough oil available. Faced with this responsibility, oil companies must continue to invest in the risky business of searching for oil. Today, only 1 out of 9 wildcat wells drilled has oil. And only 1 out of about 50 brings in enough oil or gas to make the strike commercially profitable. But oil must be found if Americans are to be prepared in the event of another day of infamy.
There's no business like show business, and the movie industry is no exception. Here, on this soundstage, every detail appears with compelling realism, thanks to a fascinating combination of many talents and materials. Cut calls the director at the end of a take. Then he checks a potted plant of ivy to improve the decor of a scene. Looks like real ivy, doesn't it? Well, it isn't. This and much of the foliage you see in films is made with an oil-derived plastic. Ever wonder how fog or mist gets in movie scenes? Obviously, you can't bottle it and bring it in. The answer is a fog-making device such as this that expels fine droplets of petroleum to swirl around the set. And what would a cloak and dagger opera be without cobwebs? Here, they are created with an intriguing mechanism using petroleum products. Confidentially, this mechanism has turned Hollywood spiders into a bunch of shiftless loafers. The makeup man also has a wide variety of oil-derived products at his disposal. In addition to the many forms of grease paints, rouges, lipsticks, shadows, and mascaras to help him achieve a dramatic effect, he also works with special petroleum plastics to create or change a face using a mask base such as this. Thus, the normal, pleasant face of the actor is transformed into a grotesque one, perfect for the part, thanks to petroleum and the talents of the makeup artist. And here's the end result, how the actual scene will look in theaters for an eerie mystery drama. With petroleum's assist to movie making, it all adds up to entertainment by the barrel. This is vacation time in 1917, 40 long years ago. And here we are, the whole family getting started. This year we intend to travel the easy way and make the entire trip by automobile. Ah, how easy, how simple it is. Baggage is no problem, providing you've enough fortitude. Food for the journey is neatly packed in an appropriate hamper, too heavy and burdensome for Mother to carry. It's a big hamper, but then we'll need a lot of food. After all, from home to the lake is 200 miles, and that's a pretty long journey in 1917. Now we're about ready to depart. Of course, we don't have a self-starter in 1917 to start the engine, but the car can be started with the coordination of Mom and with plenty of determination by Dad. Just a few simple turns of the crank and there you are. All a man needs is the strength of Hercules and the courage of a lion. For about all the auto tourist can expect to find in the open road is dust or mud. Yes, sir, it takes a real man to face this unknown in 1917. It takes a real man also to know what's wrong when the engine begins to sputter and die, because service stations are few and far between. We're out of gasoline. It's as simple as that. Or is it? Because the gasoline of 1917 is apt to contain impurities, even water. The truly efficient motorist of this era always carries a piece of chamois as standard equipment to strain the fuel. Incidentally, this 1917 gasoline would be completely inadequate for today's automobiles. Soon again, we're off. Ah, the speed, the ease, the convenience of it all. Every member of the family, every piece of baggage transported from door to door. Except, of course, when they're faced with a steep hill. What goes up must come down, which is what we do, backwards. You see, we just don't have the power we need. So it's everybody out to help unload for another try at the steep grade. Such good fun, and so relaxing. Later, to our horsepower, we must add woman and children power, too. Dad finally makes it, carrying the baggage up the hill the old-fashioned way. It takes a mighty strong man to travel by auto in this day and age. But we get there finally. It takes us 2 whole days, mind you, to travel 200 miles, but we made it. Ah, but next day, vacation time blooms in earnest for every member of the family. No one has a worry in the world. No one? Well, you see, there are no service stations around here in 1917, so Dad makes his own repairs and motor tune-up for the eventual trip back home. Yes, vacation time 1917 provides fun for everyone. Almost everyone, that is. Now it's vacation time 1957. And here we are, the entire family about to leave for our favorite lake. We travel by car, of course, as we always do. Today's light, durable plastic luggage makes loading the car a snap. And the roomy interior of today's cars provides more than enough space for vacation needs. We've come a long way in automobile travel since 1917. Family comfort assured, with tough plastic seat covers, able to take any kind of a beating. No fuss, no bother, just the fun of getting started. For Mother, well, she always says that driving to the lake is the happiest part of her vacation. Dad has to agree. Happy because of the economy of vacation travel by car. He knows that with today's gasoline, he is driving one of America's best bargains. We've come a long way since 1917 in the improvement of automobiles and the fuels that power them. For instance, today's regular gasolines are as good as the premium fuels of only 5 years ago. And today's premium gasolines are as powerful as those used in our combat aircraft in the last war. So we climb hills as though our car had wings. Choice of routes is easy and sure, especially with the individually prepared map and touring services provided by oil companies. If desired, side trips and scenic areas are indicated on the maps for the enjoyment of the whole family. And no matter where we travel, over the wide, smooth asphalt highways that crisscross the nation, we are never far from one of the thousands of service stations, operated by independent businessmen who are mighty proud of the services they provide, even prouder of the products they sell. For today's gasoline is the biggest bargain on our vacation budget, approximately 2 cents a mile, including federal and state gasoline taxes. And everybody travels for the price of one. Service stations are handy places for information of local interest, such as the location of beauty spots and the places where fish are big and hungry. Refueled and refreshed, we're on our way again. And before we know it, here we are at our favorite lake. The 200 miles traveled comfortably in a matter of hours. Where we drive on our vacation is, of course, up to us. For in this great land of ours, there is a favorite vacation spot for everyone. And it is significant to remember that in our country, the only passport required for travel is a driver's license. Progress Parade brings you a collection of true stories of America at work. Oil is where you find it, and you sometimes find it in the strangest places. One of the most unusual places oil has been found is in the backyard of the movie capital of the world, Hollywood. Here at the 20th Century Fox studio in West Los Angeles, California, the main order of business, as we all know, is movie making. This is where great extravaganzas are put on film for all of us to enjoy. At the moment, a procession of costume players rehearses a complicated scene of a fabulous musical. One of the tallest stars in this movie lot is not an actor or an actress, and very few people have even heard about it. It's an oil drilling rig that's completely soundproof, entirely encased in a modern plastic material so that no drilling sounds are heard outside the rig. In addition to the huge investment in drilling an oil well, this costly soundproofing shows how far oil companies go to consider the needs of other industries. The giant door, similar to those in motion picture sound stages, is closed so that the drilling operation may continue without interrupting or disturbing a dramatic scene in the making. While the actors emote, the petroleum operation continues, and neither interferes with the other. Oil is found in the most peculiar places, and finding it is a free and open challenge to anyone who is willing to take the chance, try his luck, and risk his money. But remember, oil is where you find it. This is material on which some unusual underground detective work is being performed. The material is a sample of rock strata taken from the depths of the earth. And this is a special underground detective agent, you might say, although he is by profession a skillful, highly trained geologist who specializes in paleontology. The rock, known as a core sample, was brought out of the ground by an oil drilling rig using a special bit. The drilling operation has gone on for several weeks and has reached a depth of more than a mile. How much deeper should they drill? Are they coming closer to oil? To help answer these questions, the thousands of feet of drill pipe must be brought up and stacked in the derrick, and then lowered again with a special bit so that a core sample may be cut at the bottom of the hole and then brought up for examination and study. In a nearby field laboratory, Petroleum's underground detective starts his third degree on the sample. And by the time he is through, he will make the rock reveal a fascinating story of what the surface of the Earth was like millions of years ago. Scrapings from the rock contain tiny fossils, the prehistoric remains of minute shellfish and one-celled animals. The fossils, called foraminifera, or forams, provide clues to help the geologist determine the age of the underground formations. Here are some of the fossils. Most of them are smaller than a grain of sand. Under higher magnification, however, they become recognizable as marine life, like little seashells. Uncounted trillions of these tiny creatures swarmed in the warm, shallow seas that covered much of the Earth's surface millions of years ago. They filtered down to the bottom of seas and were incorporated in layers of silt. The silt piled up over a vast period of time and was compressed into layers of rock, the type of rock from which the core sample is taken. It is thought that petroleum was formed at a certain age from the remains of the foraminifera. Upheavals within the Earth, or of the Earth's crust, formed traps in which oil accumulated. Scientific analysis of foraminifera is representative of the many modern scientific advances brought about by free competition among the nation's privately owned oil companies. This unique underground detective work is undertaken to help obtain more petroleum to serve all America through a study of core samples taken from the depths of the Earth.
This is my magic suitcase. In it are about 2,400 products of petroleum, products we all use every day. The suitcase itself is made of petroleum, and everything in it was once crude oil locked far beneath the surface of the Earth. For example, here are a pair of nylons, like the ones I'm wearing. As a matter of fact, I'm dressed entirely in oil, in new fabrics developed from petroleum. In our homes, there are hundreds of petroleum-derived products, from drapes to detergents to plastic refrigerator bags. And they're all right here. But for the moment, we're going to talk about one part of the magic suitcase story, and that's petroleum's aid to glamour. Have you ever thought how women in past ages worked to beautify themselves? Let's suppose, for instance, we were living in a time before the use of petroleum, say, in Egypt, of Cleopatra. Whether or not you agree that I resemble the fabulous Cleopatra, the point is that she used eyeshadow, black above and green below, wrinkle removers, hair and bathing lotions, all made from vegetable oils and animal fats. The big drawback was that the oils and fats had an offensive odor, so she had to apply perfume to camouflage the disagreeable smell. Perfume made by the priests, which was one of the high dark arts. In Roman times, a young matron had the cosmetic arts of the whole world at her disposal, and her makeup was correspondingly elaborate. She used hair bleach and oils, eyeshadow, lip and cheek rouge, face powder, creams, and perfume. Her cosmetics were made with animal fats too, combined with a metallic substance, usually lead, so you can imagine what it did to her skin. Later, in the 18th century French court, Marie Antoinette used a lotion of talc, buttermilk, and honey to form a kind of mask. Rouge, powder, and eye makeup were applied on top of the mask. Then the veins in the temples were penciled a light blue to show the difference between a blue blood and the vulgar red-blooded commoners. Well, here I am back in modern times. And let me remind you, those cosmetics of yesteryear not only smelled bad, but very often were harmful to the skin. It got so that by Victorian times, nice girls didn't use any makeup at all, just soap and rice powder. Then, about 1890, a chemist thought of using petroleum white oils as a cosmetic base, and a whole new era of beauty was born. Today's petroleum-based cosmetics have three wonderful advantages that ladies of past history never dreamed of: convenience of application, built-in skin care, and durability of wear of the pleasingly scented beauty aids once they are applied. Cold cream was the first of a whole host of petroleum-based products. And here's a modern, indispensable item that many women say is the most important beauty aid they have: lipstick. Once it's on, it must stay put through eating and kissing. Science and industry have teamed up with a quality known as free enterprise to bring modern, serviceable lipsticks to us all. About 2,400 petroleum-based products are in use today and touch every aspect in our lives. We've only discussed a few of them in the cosmetics line. The rest of them are all around us, in our living rooms, in our kitchens, and in our transportation. And that explains the magic in the magic suitcase. Beauty aids and a standard of living that would make Cleopatra a little wild-eyed with envy.
One of the great advantages in this land of ours is that we are free to go where we want, when we want. We are a nation on wheels. And wherever we go, there is always available the fuel to power our cars. The gasoline we get in service stations such as this, typical of the kind in Moscow, Idaho. Whatever the needs of your car, just name it. Gasoline? Sure. Tailor-made for the season, climate, and whatever make or age your car might be. American service station ingenuity, born of free enterprise, abounds with services. Check the water? But of course. Service without having to ask for it. It is one of the most important products of the modern independent dealers in America who operate our service stations. Check the oil? Naturally. All a matter of established service and practice. Check the battery? You bet. And don't forget the tires. This kind of complete service is so accepted by us, in fact, that few of us ever think about it twice. But let's go from this station, typical of those in Moscow, Idaho, USA, to the USSR to see what kind of service you get in a gasoline station in that other Moscow. This exclusive film reveals for the first time an inside look at a Soviet service station in Moscow. This is one of the 5 service stations in the capital of the Soviet Union, a city of 5 million people. The station features such attractions as a self-service pump, an attendant whose only job is to collect government gasoline coupons, and one brand of gasoline. Buying gasoline for a Moscow citizen is a complicated affair. First, he must buy coupons from the government in order to buy any gasoline at all. Different cars in the Russian capital take different types of gasoline, but each Moscow service station carries only one type. So our Moscow motorist can only go to the station that carries gasoline for his particular car, since this is the only gasoline his coupons will buy. At the Moscow service station, the motorist must first sign his coupon and give it to the attendant, usually a woman. Then, the motorist takes the hose from the pump and fills the tank himself. In the Soviet Union, the motorist provides his own service, grins and bears it, because there's nothing he can do about it. And if his car breaks down, he must fix it himself or find a garage. All of this is how the motorist is served in the USSR. There is, however, one consolation the average Russian motorist has for this grade of government service. There aren't really enough privately owned cars in Soviet Russia for it to make much difference anyway. Yes, it's a long way from the Russian service station behind the Iron Curtain to the one at any crossroads in the USA. And the distance is measured in more than just miles. America's competing oil companies vie for the American motorist's business every day in every way. Just one of the big differences between life in Soviet Russia and in this land of ours.